You gotta dream of chase. If they don't support you, don't deviate. You got the vision, you lead the way. If they don't follow, then you be okay. Just cut them off like a payment due. Don't let them play with you. Think about all of the shit that you made it through. Think about all of the ways that they label you so incorrectly. When you blow up, they make on your testy. Quick like nasty, no interesting. How I'm manifesting all of my goals. They saw to protect me from all of my foes, and he started cutting off all of my woes. I guess I'm just highly favored and chose. I don't have.
Hello, welcome back to another video. I gotta clear up some things. I was blessed enough, let's say that, to have two grandmas. I was blessed enough to have a granddaddy that was biologically my grandfather. My grandma and my granddaddy on my daddy's side was married to death did them part. My grandma on my mama's side married a man which was not my grandfather. My grandma on my daddy's side showed me love. Everyone on my daddy's side, everyone showed me so much love. I gotta say this because I looked in the comments and some people is pointing fingers, and I get it, but I think we're pointing the fingers at the wrong people. My grandma on my daddy's side, everybody on my daddy's side, they were so loving, affectionate. They would do anything in the world for me. My grandma on my mama's side, I watched my little sister. We was young. I watched my little sister fight, tussled, wrestled with my grandma on my mama's side for a hug. She did not want to hug her for nothing. She fought for it. I never remember, I can never recall, not one time, my grandma on my mama's side telling me she loved me. Not once. As my sister was tussling and wrestling and struggling for a hug from my grandma, I watched and I thought, it was new to me. I never was affectionate with her because she never showed affection, but I wasn't missing it. Do that make sense? I never missed the affection from her because I was receiving it from my other side, my family. So in that moment, as I'm watching my little sister, I'm literally getting disgusted. I'm getting disgusted because I'm like, dang, she doing all that not to give her own granddaughter a hug? What's going on? I couldn't understand it. But I thought about, I'm so blessed. I don't have to go through that with my grandma. That's how I was thinking. Thank God I ain't got to go through that with my grandma. I thought that way. I wasn't missing that. I got enough of that from that side of the family. I felt some type of way for my little sister. She didn't have that. And she had to fight to get it. But it always stayed there. It stayed there. It's hard to forget because I couldn't imagine. I was never rejected from affection. I received it abundantly. So I said all that to say this. In that moment, that told me a lot about my grandma. My grandma on my daddy's side, the reason she told me not to say anything to my grandfather, it would have killed my grandfather. But the real reason she told me not to say anything to my grandfather, my daddy, when it got back to him, he would have killed my Uncle Joe. That was the real reason. I know she was protecting her baby, her son, and I know she should have been protecting me. But my grandma and my daddy was like this. That was her baby boy. She would do anything under the sun for him. She did everything under the sun for him. He was spoiled. And then he was the only one left. She buried two of her children. I don't fault my grandma for telling me, don't tell your granddaddy. I don't fault her for that. And I ask y'all not to fault her for that. I love my grandma so much. Okay, my grandma on my mama's side had a pastor named Reverend Allen, and she would leave to go to work 3-4 o'clock in the morning. She worked at University of North Florida. She was the janitorial supervisor, and when things needed to be fixed, she would send him to the house to fix things. When he came to the house to fix things, he also broke things. When he left the house after he had to fix things for my grandma, it was just another, he would come fix and he would come break. He would fix the things my grandma needed. And you know, this pastor of my grandma church would leave money for me. He would give me money after he did things to me. This is not meant to be a pity party, okay? I just can't help but for my emotions to flow. It's not just a thinking process that I've been going through over the years. Now, it's me reliving it. This is a lot. Just the whole process of this is a lot for me. Years later, I finally told my sister what happened with Mr. Allen. And do you know my sister told me the same thing he did to her? And I said, Nisha, what? And she was like, yeah, he did that to me too. And I said, let's go tell grandma. We went and told my grandma. Would you believe my grandma didn't believe us? She did not believe us. When the discussion was over, me and my sister, it's my baby, this is my sister. My right hand baby, my right hand man, my right hand woman, this is my baby. I said, Nisha, you think grandma was messing around with Reverend Allen? You think grandma was messing with Reverend Allen? We both came to the conclusion that, yeah, but I didn't further come to another conclusion. Way years later that, was she allowing him to mess with me? Before I came to that conclusion, let's go back a little bit more. I pretty much came to the conclusion that my grandma was allowing him to mess over us. So now this is where we can start blaming somebody, because even when my Uncle Mike molested me and CPS moved me and my little sister out the house, after I told the school that my uncle was doing stuff to me, and that's how CPS came and grabbed me and my sister, because I went to school and told. My grandma told me if I was lying, she was gonna beat my butt. And her husband told me if I was telling the truth, he was gonna beat my butt. The same husband that molested my mama, she ran away to my daddy and they had me. When them people checked up under my clothes, I was so afraid, because either way, I knew I was gonna get a butt whipping. And they told her, yes, I had been played with under my clothes. And thank God he protected me and kept me from getting a whipping from either one of them. He knew I didn't deserve it, or whatever they thought they was gonna do. My heavenly daddy said, oh no, that's not about to happen. And he removed us. I go stay with my daddy. That was at the age of 8. I was about to turn 9 in November. That happened October the 31st, so I was 8. My mama died in September of the same year. My mama died September of the same year. October the same year, I prayed and asked God to remove me. He didn't waste no time. My uncle, that is, as soon as my mama died and I was in his space, he started messing with me. And then the following month, I turned 9. Now I go stay with my daddy. Like, my daddy was very intimidating. He was strict. He didn't play the radio. And I can honestly say, from the looks, I mean, from the inside out, I am my daddy 150%. Even when I was a small little girl, before my mama died, by my daddy's standards. Do you remember chapstick? I could not wear chapstick. I could not wear fingernail polish, colored or clear. My mama was in the streets and she used to dress me, I guess I want to say a mini version of her. And my daddy would get so angry and he would go jump on my mama on the corner where she would be hanging at and tell her, you don't dress my daughter like this. But the whole time, all the time, while he was trying to protect me from, the whole time, I was already being and he didn't know. One day, this was before my mama died, I went to my daddy's house, dressed in what my mama put me on, and do you know my daddy put me across his lap and spanked my butt about the clothes I had on, as if I was responsible for what I could put on. But I guess he had done jumped on my mama so much about it, and she didn't care. She did what she wanted to do with her daughters. I guess I caught what she couldn't. He seen that she didn't care. Now I'm finna catch it. My daddy tried to protect me from men who was attracted to children, and the entire time I was already being messed over from men who was attracted to kids, and he didn't know it. My daddy's birthday October the 27th. My birthday is November the 22nd. I am the original last day Scorpio, even though I know we don't supposed to talk about that as Christians. But I'm just saying this to show you our personalities was so much alike that we would clash, right? And when I was 11 or 12, I had told my daddy I hated him, and that broke his heart. When he asked me why I hated him, I couldn't tell him why, because I didn't know. But I think it was not, I know now, and I figured it out then. It wasn't that I hated my daddy. I was afraid of my daddy. I was intimidated by my daddy. I didn't hate my daddy, but I didn't know how to express that. So that was the word I knew, and that was the word I used, and he shipped, you hear me? Straight to Georgia. My grandma's sister on my mama's side, he shipped me there. That's who I started living with, Macon, Georgia. Before he shipped me there to live, a lot of summers in my life, even before my mama passed, they would put me on the Greyhound bus to go visit my people in Georgia. And I was little, and they would put a little wristband around me, and I would sit directly behind the bus driver. And the only thing I remember my mama telling me is, don't take your shoes off, they'll slide to the back. Keep your shoes on. And almost every summer, I would go to Georgia to visit my people. That's when it started, when I went for the summer times to visit. So now he shipped me there to live. I'm not keeping nobody. I will never protect any type of child. I will never protect them. Never, okay? Now, that's why I drop names, because I don't give a. Okay. With that being said, I had an Uncle J first, the first one. I had an Uncle Willie, an Uncle JD, an Uncle Shorty, my cousin Travis. Yeah, those four. My Uncle Willie got caught on top of me one night in my room. It was my grandma's sister who I stayed with in Georgia, but I called her grandma because all my little cousins, that was their grandma, so I just fell on the line and called her my grandma. And she answered. She didn't treat me no different. And she was actually sweeter than my grandma. Her husband, my granddaddy, caught his son on top of me in the middle of the night. But what's crazy is he came in there with a belt already. He came in there swinging on him. He came in there whipping him off of me. How did he know? We was in the room right next to my grandma and granddaddy room. Their room was right here. My room was right there. He was on top of me. My granddaddy came in there with the belt, beating his son off of me. I'm not sure, did he peek in the room and saw it and went back and got the belt? Did he know his son and just automatically came in there with the belt? Did he see his son sneaking out and waited, coming out with the belt? I don't know. I don't understand it. I could never get it. Uncle JD, was another person who would do stuff to me and give me money. And let me say this too. Not until I went to Georgia did someone actually penetrated me. Before that, with everybody, they was hunching, feeling, licking, sucking, playing under my clothes. When I went to Georgia, my cousin Travis, he was the first person to, he had a little sister named catch him on top of me. And I would hear him say, Travis, get off that girl, you gonna get her pregnant. Travis, get off that girl, you gonna get her pregnant. Every time she caught him on top of me, she was a little ass girl. And she knew what he was doing would get me pregnant. And guess what? It did. I was 12. My grandma used to give me allowance every week. $20 allowance, and we would go into town and eat Troy's. Oh my God, I love Troy's. I want me some Troy's so bad. Off subject, but it's a hamburger joint. Every Saturday we would go to Troy's, and then I could go shop and get the little things I needed or wanted, right? With my little $20. And I would go in the house. I mean, I was 12. I knew I had a period, and then I knew it stopped. But for the most part, I didn't know I had a baby inside. If you can understand what I'm saying. I didn't know I had a baby inside, but I knew my period was missing, and I knew my grandma washed my clothes. I knew my period being missing, something wasn't right. I knew my period being missing, I felt like I was gonna get in trouble, but I didn't understand why my period was missing. So what I did was, I used to go to the hair store and get some red burgundy darkish dye and put in my drawers. When I stood in the shower to bathe, when I stood in the shower, I was standing in the shower. Now I'm starting to pay attention to my body. And I would look down and I would try to, cause I'm 12, right? But at 10, I was 150 pounds. My grandma on my daddy's side used to say, "Ooh, girl, you gonna be big as a house." She used to tell me that. Ooh, I know what big as a house look like because all my people on my mama's side is big as a house. I don't want to be big as a house. So I would starve myself every time she say that and drop the weight. But then at 10, I learned how to hold my stomach in. So I've been holding my stomach in since I was 10 years old. So now while I'm pregnant at 12 in the shower, I'm looking at my stomach and I'm trying to hold it in, trying to suck it in. And it wouldn't go nowhere. It was still a budge there. It wouldn't go nowhere. That's when things start making sense. Now I'm learning. Now I'm seeing. Now I'm understanding. Get what I'm saying? Now I'm trying to. It wouldn't go nowhere. It wouldn't go nowhere. I got scared. I don't know what to do, but I ain't gonna say nothing. At 12, I'm pregnant. I'm having pregnant symptoms. I'm sleeping all the time. I'm eating up everything. My grandma, she had 13 kids. My grandma in Georgia, my grandma in Georgia had 13 children. So now they done put 2 and 2 together. They asked me one day, was I pregnant? No. Am I pregnant? No. Am I pregnant? No. They took me to the clinic and I was pregnant. My grandma and her child, Margaret, we stood in my grandma's room for hours. I was standing. Margaret was standing. My grandma was sitting on the bed, asking me over and over and over again for hours, who baby is it? Screaming to the top of their lungs. I couldn't take it no more. And I screamed, Travis! And everybody just broke down crying. 2 days later, it done drove me to Atlanta to have an abortion. They ain't asked me nothing. They flew me. I mean, we drove to Atlanta. They had made an appointment for me to get an abortion. When I got to the abortion clinic, the people did the usual. They said, "Oh no, we can't do that. She's 5 months pregnant." I was too far along to have an abortion. Or what they thought to do was bring me back down here to my daddy and my grandma. Drove me back down here to my daddy and my grandma. I rang my grandma doorbell. My Uncle Anthony answered the door. I just ran to the back. on that sofa in the den when I knew my grandma was sleeping. I woke my grandma up. Grandma, she opened her eyes and said, had her sleep. You pregnant. They didn't call and tell her that. They ain't call and tell her for a reason. My grandma woke up out her sleep and said, you pregnant. And I know they hadn't called and told her nothing, because they was trying to be slick. Shake my head and say, y'all. She just rose up off that sofa and came to the front in the living room. Everybody who drove down here with me in that car from Georgia started blaming me. To this day, they blame me. To this day, they despise me. To this day, they don't say nothing to me. You hear me? To this day, grown old people harboring something on their heart against me. And I'm the victim. They did that. They still doing it. Everybody has something to say. They trying to say my grandma never sent me up there. I was already pregnant. My grandma say, oh no ma'am, when I sent her up there, I made sure she was on her period. She was not pregnant. I waited for her to get on her period. I waited for her period to come on purpose. My daddy and them and his homeboy drove me up there. I was on my period. She did that on purpose. Okay. So we know that was a lie. Once they done had a big old commotion in the living room, Georgia people take Georgia. I'm back home with my grandma and my daddy. Daddy and my grandma had done found this place called Buckner Manor. Buckner Manor is a place. Buckner Manor is inside of Children's Home Society. So it's Children's Home Society, then it's Buckner Manor. Buckner Manor is a place for pregnant teenagers and pregnant women to go spend their pregnancy there at the home. But they supposed to give their baby up for adoption. While you're at Buckner Manor, naturally, people gonna change their minds, right? So while I was there going through my pregnancy, I watched people change their mind. I watched people give babies up until it was my turn. So it was my turn to have my baby. And I had my baby. When I saw my baby, I made up in my mind from the first second I laid eyes on my baby, I ain't giving my baby away. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know where I'm gonna stay at, but I'm not giving my baby away. The people from the adoption agency, because that's what my grandma and my daddy, they put me there so I could, nobody would know I was pregnant. No neighbors, no family members, nobody. And then I was gonna have my baby and give my baby away. Go back home, start fresh, I guess. It ain't work. It didn't go that way. Cause from the first second I laid eyes on that little one, everything in me said, no, I'm keeping her. So when the white lady had came to the hospital to talk to me to do the leftover proceeding, I'm 13. She's sitting in the chair. She looked at me and asked me something pertaining the adoption. And I looked at her and said, I'm keeping my baby. That's what I said. And she said, huh? That lady said, huh? I mean, she looked at me like I was crazy. 13-year-old telling me she gonna keep her baby. 13, you ain't got that. You don't have that type of right. You're just 13, huh? You're keeping your baby? Yeah, I'm keeping my baby. I'm not giving my baby away. She was furious. She was furious. Do you hear me? But I didn't care. That wasn't my problem. I'm keeping my baby. Without knowing where I was going. Because I knew my dad and them didn't want me with no baby. That's why they put me in Buckner Manor. I didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't have nowhere to go. You feel me? But I knew one thing. I was keeping my baby. So it was this sweet nurse. She was so sweet. Originally, this is how me and the nurse got close. My baby was so pretty. My baby was so freaking pretty. She was gorgeous. She was beautiful. Do you hear me? And I'm not just saying that because that was my baby. Like, my baby was gorgeous. So gorgeous. The same nurse, every shift she came in, she would go get another nurse to come in there to see my baby. See how pretty she was. They couldn't believe how gorgeous my baby was, right? And she would always bring a new nurse that she hadn't shown my baby in the next day when she came in on her shift. This particular day she came in, I was boiling. And she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I ain't got nowhere to go." I said, "I don't have nowhere to live." And she said, "Oh, you can live with me." I said, "Huh?" And she said, "You ain't got nowhere to stay." I said, "No." I was like, my daddy didn't put me in this pregnancy home. They put me in the home so I can get my baby away and so nobody would know I was pregnant. And then I said, "But when I saw my baby, I'm not giving her away." And she said, "You can come stay with me." A complete stranger told me I could come stay with her. And I was like, "Oh, thank you so much, because I don't want to give my baby away. Thank you so much, because I want to keep my baby." Let me show you how small the world is. When I went back to the home, my daddy came and visited me. By this time, he know I'm keeping my baby. He had one question. One question he wanted to y'all know what that is. All my daddy wanted to know is, why did I hate him? I looked at my daddy. He came to visit me at Butler Mountain right after I got out of the hospital. Now it's the process of me leaving the place. He asked me, why did I hate him? I couldn't do nothing but look at him and say, "I don't know." And my daddy just broke down into tears. He was so relieved with just that answer, because I couldn't tell him, because I didn't know. He was so relieved and happy that he got some type of answer. He just broke down. And you know what the next thing my daddy said to me? "Get ready, we going home. Get ready, we going home." And I went home with my daddy. The nurse had my information because the plan was for me to go home with her. Then she came and visited me before I left the place, because it was still a little process, like a day or two before I could go home. I told her, "My daddy gonna let me go. I'm going home. I'm going home." She said, "Oh, I'm so happy for you." I gave her my address. As soon as I got home, she came and visited me. You know what that lady said when she came in there? She said, "Y'all know I stay down the street." This lady the entire time stayed 1 block away from me on the corner house down the street where I was born, raised, went to elementary, middle school, and eventually high school from the same house. She stayed right down the street with her mama. Her mama was a firefighter. The very next block, right there on the corner. If I stand outside my grandma's house, I can look dead at her house. And all that time, I never knew her until I went and had my baby. And for many years, we kept in touch. That's how I got my first daughter. I will see you in the next video.